In the headlines this evening, senior Korean and U.S. officials discuss security issues on the Korean Peninsula, while President Park Geun-hye calls for regular inter-Korean dialogue. We take a look at where inter-Korean ties are headed. Activity at North Korea's main nuclear complex looks to have come to a halt, this according to a U.S.-based think tank. And 16 Korean companies, including Samsung Electronics, are planning on making investments worth $26 billion by next year. Stay tuned for these stories and more on Early Edition at 6. Hello and welcome to our newscast. It's Monday, October 6th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Na Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. We start with the prospects of improved inter-Korean relations. President Park Geun-hye today said the two Koreas should meet and engage in dialogue on a regular basis.
Well, this comes after the two sides agreed to hold high-level talks later this month or in early November. Our Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
As the two Koreas prepare for a fresh round of high-level talks, President Park Geun-hye on Monday called on the need for regular inter-Korean dialogue.
특히 이번 고위급 접촉이 단발성 대화에 그치지 않고 남북 대화의 정례화를 이루어 평화 통일의 길을 닦을 수 있도록 노력해야 할 것입니다.
Sending a high-level delegation to Seoul on Saturday, Pyongyang said it was ready to hold a second round of high-level talks with Seoul sometime later this month or in early November. South Korea said reuniting families separated by the Korean War will be on top of the agenda.
The issue of separated families certainly needs to be brought to the table by us. We are hoping to discuss a wide range of issues that are of interest to South and North Korea.
The surprise one-day visit has raised hopes of a new dynamic in inter-Korean ties. In Seoul for talks with senior officials and Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russell extended Washington's support on the latest developments.
I made clear that, as is a consistent element of U.S. policy, the U.S. supports the efforts on the part of the ROK to promote and enhance inter-Korean relations.
But President Park noted that inter-Korean ties have sometimes worsened following dialogue, implying it may be too early to judge North Korea's intentions. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Well, figuring out North Korea's intention has always been a tricky task, and as is on this topic as well. Its leader Kim Jong-un in the past had made clear that the regime will not give up its nuclear ambitions, but could that be changing?
Well, the U.S.-based think tank says activity at North Korea's main Yongbyon nuclear complex has been reduced significantly. Our Kwon So-hwa has the details.
Activity at North Korea's main nuclear site may have come to a partial or complete halt. Citing recent satellite imagery, the U.S.-based Institute for Science and International Security says a comparison of images made in August and September with earlier ones shows a lack of steam venting from the 5-megawatt reactor's turbine and a lack of water being discharged from its cooling system. The U.S. think tank says the reason for the shutdown is not clear, but it could be for refueling or renovation, raising concerns radioactive plutonium could be extracted during this process.
I think we can interpret the shutdown of this reactor and the recent visit to South Korea by a North Korean delegation as Pyongyang's intention to improve inter-Korean ties. But if the shutdown is for the purpose of extracting plutonium, then it will negatively affect North Korea-U.S. relations and the resumption of the six-party talks.
Nuclear tests have been conducted using plutonium produced at the Yongbyon reactor in previous years, including North Korea's most recent nuclear test in February of last year. A couple of months after that, Pyongyang said it would restart its aged reactor at the Yongbyon nuclear complex amid high regional tensions. The reactor had been shut down in 2007 under an Aid for Disarmament Accord. The think tank also reports that activity has been spotted in other parts of the nuclear site. Satellite imagery shows roofs being renovated at another plant on the south side of the site that's known to store centrifuges which are used to enrich uranium. But the institute added it wasn't sure whether the expansion of the centrifuges had been completed. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And staying with North Korea, as we said, this past weekend was eventful in terms of inter-Korean relations, with top North Korean officials setting foot on South Korean soil.
But the burning question is, will cross-border relations now take a step forward?
For some answers, we are joined by Dr. Kim Dong-yeol from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Professor Kim, let's start with a blatantly obvious question. North Korean officials making a delightful surprise visit during the weekend. Do you think this could provide maybe new positive momentum in inter-Korean relations?
I think so. I'm very positive that this was not going to stop as just a one-time event. But as the president said, it's going to be, go on in a kind of regular basis. I'll give you two reasons for my kind of positive prediction, because number one, I believe both sides need a breakthrough from, the kind of injunction that was made by South Korean government on the May 24th earlier, that without any significant improvement in nuclear issues, no negotiation or no talk with North Korea. Now, both South and North Korea needs to break through at this moment. And the number two, as you see from the profile of those, the delegates that visited during the weekend from North Korea, they are, I would say, a truly representation of the regime, the political regime itself. Number 2, 3, and 4 guys in the ranking of the political power. So in both, both regions actually provide a good kind of, the prediction, positive prediction for the future. I would say that it's definitely going to be a good momentum for the North-South relationship.
But the South Korean government has always been hoping to have or make this inter-Korean talks a regular event. It wasn't just President Park Geun-hye. How realistic is that plan at this point?
I think he is, I'm sorry, the president is very realistic, and then the situation is very realistic as well. For that, I believe we have to look at the backgrounds of what's happening. I would say that there are several rounds of warming up to get into this point, as you see from her visit to Canada and then speeches in the United Nations. And then I believe from what she said, or even though, restrained herself a lot from talking very widely or very openly what she is going to do in the future. But still, we actually catch that from her speech or from her attitude, that she's trying to find a niche or opportunity very much between the principle that this government set, meaning that without any trustworthy improvement from North Korea, no talk. There was a principle. But at the same time, she tried to open the dialogue a lot by showing that only if you show some signs and improvement of human rights, we are ready to talk to you guys. So between these two, between the big principle and then very practical search for an opportunity to open a dialogue, I believe this is truly a good opportunity. And then that's because she is very realistically offering the regular basis kind of meeting or talk in the future.
Personally, I've experienced it when you injure yourself seriously, it really changes your perspective of things. So my wild guess is that Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, not really feeling healthy, might be having an epiphany. But that's just my misguided perceptions. Sure. What's your view on North Korea trying to move on this really friendly mode?
Well, as I said, the North Korea needs a breakthrough as well. I would say that North Korea is very desperate at this moment to get out of its political or economic isolation. Well, they were highly dependent on China's help or China's support, but these days China is changing its attitude. Russia at this moment, no hope from it, because she is also busy with other international affairs as well. And then Japan, even though it offers some sort of opening dialogue with these refugee issues, but it's going to be a long process. It's not going to be solved in the near future. the only source that they can exploit at this moment is South Korea, because South Korea, even though put a very strict condition for a future dialogue, but still, through many channels, South Korean government made the point clear that we are ready to offer assistance only if you show me some significant signs of improvement in North Korean nuclear issues. So, the North Korea is very desperate. That's going to be a good reason that the delegates came here. At the same time, the stability of Kim Jong-un regime, at this, even though we are not sure about that, but altogether, definitely, regardless of the condition of the leader, I would say that North Korea is very desperate, and then this actually provided good momentum of this meeting.
So the two Koreas meeting, at least on the surface, North Korea did not talk to any other country before visiting Seoul. So can we see this as a positive sign that the two Koreas are taking the matters to their own hands and solving issues on the Korean Peninsula?
That's what North Korea wants, but South Korea will not do that. As you saw from President Park Geun-hye's visit to Canada and the United Nations, it's all known to the public that she actually revised the speeches and then shortened the strength of her speech in some places or something like that. Meaning that she. From there, I believe we see that the two sides, South Korea and the United Nations, coordinated the policy process a lot, even her visit to Canada and the United Nations. At this time as well, even though it was studied as a surprise visit by North Korea, but definitely this is time for coordination as well. Now, just go ahead and then just by themselves between South and North Korea, I don't think that's going to happen. Because I believe if South Korea is going all the way with North Korea alone without any consultation with the United States, I mean, that's going to have an effect on other affairs as well. So you know that all the things are intertwined. How much you can go by ourselves, it all depends on, I believe, how much North Korea accept this situation under the strict U.S.-South Korean alliance. And then under the alliance, what is the room for maneuver between North and South Korea? That's going to be the first condition. And then related to that, North Korean nuclear issue is the key again. So if North Korea gives some positive sign in this nuclear issue, it's going to soothe both South Korea and the United States, and then it's going to be no problem at all. But unless North Korea shows any sign of that, and then it's going to be a big trouble still to open a further dialogue between North and South Korea, and then that's going to be some kind of, big obstacle towards North and South Korean talk by themselves.
Just one point I'm a little bit confused as to, because President Park Geun-hye, didn't she say that her trust politique on the Korean Peninsula, wouldn't that involve or begin with the two Koreas talking with each other first before consulting with other nations around in the region?
But still then, the other condition she put is that start with a possible or easy issues first, meaning the soft issues first. Okay. That means that go up to the letter of harder or soft, the harder issues. Definitely that needs a consultation with other countries as well.
Right.
That's why she insisted on stepping from the lower level or feasible or possible issues first, and then go up to harder issues. That means actually still, even though it started as the North-South Korean internal issues, but eventually it's going to go consultation with other countries too.
Okay. All right.
Well, fueled by desperation, but unpredictable as weather, we will see how this baby step maneuver works towards better inter-Korean ties.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
The food industry is one sector many people seek to tap into, but it's also the most challenging industry to remain successful.
But there's one restaurant in Korea that has managed to stay popular for the past few years. You might have heard of school food if you live in Korea.
Well, don't worry if you haven't. Our Shin Se-min gives us a look on this week's Industry Insight.
It certainly looks different. It's not the spicy red gochujang-based paste tteokbokki that we're used to, and these miniature kimbaps called bari are different in their size, but they're tasty. And even though they come at a higher price than the traditional dish that inspired them, people dig them. Here, popular Korean street food, or punshik, is served with a high-end touch. School Food, a franchise Korean restaurant, is making money by offering an upscale version of Korean street food like kimbap or, say, tteokbokki in a spicy carbonara sauce.
I come here often because you can't get these type of tteokbokki elsewhere. So I've tried school food before in Hong Kong, and I've been there twice, and that's why I would quite like to try the original restaurant in Seoul. It offers like fusion Korean food, which is very different to traditional Korean food.
Since starting out 12 years ago, the franchise has beefed up in size with 80 stores nationwide. Last year, school food posted sales of $85 million.
This is a new type of Korean food. A twist to the already tasty Korean dish is what attracts both Korean and foreign diners. And people like that, they can enjoy casual Korean food in a nice, clean restaurant.
And it's going global, with a total of 10 restaurants in places like Hong Kong, Jakarta, Bangkok, Hanoi, and Los Angeles. You've come this far, and what's the toughest part of your job in expanding your business overseas? I mean, in the global market, school food is not yet well known. Is it going to be a tough road ahead?
Of course, it is a difficult road ahead, even with our dish. I mean, although this uniqueness gathers attention regardless of nationality, this will wear out, and people will get bored. But just as customers still pay visits to McDonald's and Starbucks over other stores, my ultimate goal is to establish the brand image in their minds so they come back years after.
Lee says he has been receiving a number of calls from people overseas who are interested in opening up school food restaurants abroad. And while that's something he welcomes over the long term, Lee says he first wants to tackle the Southeast Asian market, where the palates of diners are similar to those here in Korea. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
A one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Na Hyung-kyung and Daniel Che.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
On Early Edition at 6.
Now, as mentioned before, two senior U.S. officials were in Seoul on this Monday to brief South Korea about the planned revision of the so-called U.S.-Japan defense guidelines. Following a meeting with Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russell, and Assistant Secretary of Defense David Scheer said Washington will keep Seoul in the loop as talks progress. As a former victim of Japan's militaristic past, Seoul has expressed concerns about Japan's expanded military role under a revised bilateral defense cooperation deal.
This guidelines revision will not only strengthen U.S.-Japan relations, but it will strengthen peace and stability throughout the region. And of course, as this process unfolds, we're going to want to stay in close touch with our Korean partners on this thing.
Now, Russell and Scheer will meet with their Japanese counterparts in Tokyo on Tuesday before they release an interim report of their defense guidelines sometime this week. Over in Hong Kong, government officials are back to work and schools have reopened amid the ongoing sit-in pro-democracy protest. The streets look a lot emptier than last week, but some activists still occupy major roads, promising to win a truly free election slated for 2017. Our Connie Kim reports.
Hundreds of pro-democracy protesters remain in the streets of Hong Kong as the government's Monday deadline has passed without any use of police force. Although the government deadline was ignored, civil servants were able to return to work. The chief executive of Hong Kong, Leung Chun-ying, took to the airwaves on Saturday, promising that public offices and schools would reopen this Monday, even if it meant using police to break up the protests. Protesters and government officials are trying to start dialogue, but they remain deeply at odds with one another. The student protesters want their leaders to be treated equally and for political change to emerge from talks. Government officials are calling for protesters to clear the way around government buildings and main roads. Rallies in the heart of Hong Kong started late last month with demonstrators demanding universal suffrage in 2017 elections and that Beijing abandon its plan to vet candidates for the post of chief executive. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And on to the latest. Regarding April's ferry sinking, which took the lives of more than 300 Koreans, the Supreme Prosecutor's Office today announced some findings from its own investigation. Kim Young-gil has this report.
After a months-long investigation into April's Seoul ferry disaster, the prosecution said 154 people, including the captain, crew, government, and shipping officials, have so far been indicted on various charges related to the accident. The state's prosecutor has concluded that the main causes of the accident were the illegal modification and overloading of the vessel and the Korea Coast Guard's poor initial response.
Patrol Boat 123 was instructed to guide the Seoul ferry passengers to safely abandon the ship, but failed to take even their basic duties.
Obstruction charges followed as members of the Coast Guard were found to have tampered with a logbook to make it look as though the Coast Guard had instructed passengers to abandon ship and that its rescuers entered the sinking ferry when they in fact had not. Inefficient communication between the ferry's crew and Tindo Island's Vessel Traffic Service Center also played a role in the failed rescue efforts. 12 traffic controllers were found to have neglected their duties and failed to follow proper procedures in responding to distress calls. Some were even found to have falsified radio transcripts after the fact in an attempt to cover their tracks. The poor steering of the helmsman was found to have also contributed to the maritime disaster, which claimed more than 300 lives. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Korea's conglomerates have promised the Trade Ministry that they will move ahead with investment plans worth billions of dollars through next year. The government welcomed the move and says it would do all it can to foster a business-friendly environment. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Cooperation between the Korean government and the country's conglomerates seemed to go hand in hand during hard economic times. In a gathering hosted by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, tech giant Samsung Electronics and 15 other companies agreed to make investments worth around $26.6 billion in total. This includes new investment projects slated for next year, but not the expenses for annual maintenance and development projects. Among the investment plans are Samsung's semiconductor plant line at the Pyeongtaek Industrial Complex in Gyeonggi-do Province, worth $14.6 billion. Samsung officials emphasized the importance of fostering a business-friendly environment for quick completion of the plant, which is currently slated for 2017. In response, Trade Minister Yoon Sang-jik says the government will facilitate a one-on-one consultation system to remove obstacles and help companies carry out their investment plans on schedule. In regard to the unfavorable currency conditions surrounding Japan's weakening yen, which is threatening Korean exporters, the minister says domestic companies should turn the situation into an opportunity to boost their facilities' investments. He adds that businesses should take full advantage of the currency exchange rates to increase investments, especially when it comes to machinery and plant assets from Japan, since the weakening yen makes it relatively cheaper to import Japanese products. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea will be looking at a hefty interest payment on its debt at the end of the year. That's according to a plan submitted to the National Assembly on Monday, which says that $19.5 billion has been set aside to cover the cost, which is up about $2 billion from last year. Taking into account Korea's population of 50.4 million, the per capita interest burden would be approximately around $400 this year. Government debt has been rising steadily over the recent years and is expected to top $465 billion this year. Most of it is financed through the issuance of treasuries. The Korean currency dropped to a 6-month low against the U.S. dollar on Monday. The won gave up 7.61 to close at 1,069 against the greenback amid speculations of a potential rate hike by the U.S. Federal Reserve following recent strong jobs data. And against this backdrop, the Japanese yen has been weakening at a much faster rate than the won. According to the Korea Center for International Finance, over the last 3 months, the yen has dropped by 7.6% against the greenback, while the won has given up just a little over 4%, meaning the yen has weakened by almost twice as much. Experts say this could deal a blow to Korean exporters who are losing price competitiveness to their Japanese rivals and prompt more foreign investors to leave the Korean equities markets. And now the weather. We began the week with bright and breezy conditions here in Seoul and other parts of the country.
Well, for more, our Kim Young-gil Kim Bo-kyung is standing by at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung, take it away.
Well, hope your week is off to a great start, guys. Make sure to take a stroll today because, as Daniel mentioned earlier, we are enjoying beautiful autumn conditions throughout the country under partly cloudy skies. This afternoon, temperatures rose about 10 degrees compared to the morning. The big gap in temperatures between the day and night continues, so a jacket will come in handy on your ways home. Other than that, those of you on the mountainous regions of Gangwon province could get to see the first frost of the season tomorrow early morning. Well, this lovely weather, perfect for soaking up some vitamin D, will stick around for a while, so make the most out of it while you can. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul, it's 22, Daegu and Busan, 23. As for other places, Jeju makes it to 22, Dokdo 19, Mount Kumgang 12. That's all the updates we're following at this hour. I'll be back with more after 8. See you soon.
Thank you for that, Bo-kyung. That's all we have for you at this hour. Thank you for staying with us. If you're tuning in from different time zones, have a wonderful day. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Na Hyun-kyung. To our viewers in Korea, have a great rest of the evening. Daniel and I will be back same time tomorrow.